All right, here we go. Welcome to the Profit Lab show and podcast. I'm your host, Marie Torossian, 10x certified business coach and a CPA, and I'm so glad you are here. If you're new to the show, welcome. Be sure to subscribe or follow wherever you are watching or listening to us on so that you don't miss any episodes, which are going to be dropped every Wednesday at noon Eastern Time. And that would be on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Podbean, and all major podcast platforms. Last week, we talked about the importance of implementation. We talked about why so many good ideas never turn really into action. But here's something equally important. Before you start implementing, you need to make sure you're solving the right problem. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Every business owner reaches the same question at some point, like where do I start? Which should I fix first? How do I know which thing will make the biggest difference? And that's exactly our focus area for today's show. So I want to start with, why, and oftentimes, like when we're working all on our own, why we end up, trying to solve for the wrong problem. As business owners, we are always looking for things to solve. That's what we're there. The business is there to solve problems, but often we end up doing the wrong ones. So we could naturally jump into solutions before we fully understand which problem that needs to be solved. We assume we know what's holding us back because, we're living into the everyday steps and attention of the business. Things that are getting our attention, fires that need to be turned off. And then sometimes we might think that working harder, is the right thing to do, However, working harder on the wrong problems doesn't really create the better results that we're working for. Do you feel like you've been in that situation before? I know I have. And sometimes we need that extra help, right? I want to give you some examples of like what are certain situations that what does it mean working on the wrong things, right? So we don't want to stay in the philosophical area here. I don't like that at all. I like all about action, things that really helps people understand what we're talking about, not philosophical things. So here's an idea. You might say to yourself, I need more clients. And maybe that is the truth, right? But what if you probably need better pricing? Maybe you already have the clients that you need, but maybe your pricing is not right. So that could be something like you're focusing on the wrong thing, putting the energy in the wrong thing. So that's just one example. Another one would be, I need to hire more people. But perhaps you might need better systems and automations that could support the current team that you have and gets rid of the mundane, ridiculous, day-to-day crazy stuff that you could just automate with the right tools, right? With very minimal expenses added. Another times we could say things like, I need more revenue. Who doesn't? Everybody needs more revenue. However, perhaps you haven't looked at your expenses and you're leaking profit. So perhaps take a look at that too. So there could be different things to look at a different time. So focusing on solving the right problem is going to be important. And here's another example. I need better marketing. And that could be true. Or maybe you're not following up with the current existing leads that maybe you only call them once or twice and then you let them go. And the statistics show that only probably 2% are closed in the first call and 60% in the follow-up. So think about what are you missing out on? So focusing on like, I need new clients, or new leads. The acquisition cost for that is really high. But what if you actually go back and work on the leads that you already had? So before you start fixing your business, make sure you are fixing the right problem, okay? The other question I wanted to raise is, why is it so hard to diagnose your own business, right? A lot of times we have blind spots. We have multiple things that are trying to get our attention. Being close to your business makes it very difficult to objectively evaluate what is going wrong. You may see symptoms, but not root causes. You may be emotionally attached to every single decision that needs to be made. You may normalize problems because you've lived with them for so long. You might say, like, hey, this is it. This is all we can do. Sometimes you're simply too busy reacting instead of, stepping back to evaluate. So a lot of times when you're in the middle of things, you're not seeing the big picture. So you have to take time away and then just focus on the big picture. To put this in, to put it in an example of, let's say, going to the doctor, right? When you feel sick, you know something is wrong. You don't know exactly what is wrong in your body, but then you go to the doctor and the doctor will diagnose before prescribing a treatment. They just don't give you some random treatment. Businesses deserve the same type of approach. That's what makes it different. Say working with a coach, say a coach like me. My intention when I'm working with clients is always to diagnose the real problem in the business first, so that when you're spending energy on fixing it, you're fixing the right problem. So what are the areas you need to evaluate? Okay, so let's talk about that. I always like to look at the financial health. Of course, being from the accounting world, that's my training for over 16 years. So I'm always going to look at the numbers because the numbers don't lie, right? So you can, and you can write these down, section 1, looking at some of the financials, and let's look at the business profitability. Is it 2%, 3%, 5%? Is it negative, right? So what's the point of, let's say, saying, oh, I got so much in revenues, but then you're not profitable, right? We want to look at the cash flow. Do you have enough cash flow runway for, if a bad something happens and you can still pay the bills from the business, right? Pay your team. We want to ask questions like, are you paying yourself appropriately? Okay, what story are the numbers, the financial statements are telling us between the profit and loss statement, the balance sheet, the cash flow statement, any forecasts? Do you have a forecast, right? So what are all of these things actually telling us? Where are you going? The second section I would look at is your time commitments, right? How much of your time is spent in a week doing specific tasks? How much of that time is going for admin? How much of that time is actually going for revenue generating activities? And how much of that time is actually delivery of work, let's say, are you acting like the CEO, or are you doing every possible job in the business, right? Are you holding up team members from actually doing the things you've hired them to do? Are you empowering them? And are you in the mode of consistently reacting instead of being proactively looking at where you're going? So where you spend your time is going to reveal where does the business fully depend on you, and what are the things that we need to look at deep dive to be able to correct it. All right, the third section I would look at is systems. Systems, the better your systems, the more valuable your business, when you do get evaluation. So we want to look at how does work actually get done? What are your operations look like? What are the systems, the SOPs that you have? Is your knowledge and you're documented in a way that when you bring on board team members, that they actually know what they're supposed to do? Okay. Can your team, for example, operate consistently? Looking at those SOPs. So those are key questions about the system. And this is just a few of them. Of course, I can't talk about all of them, but so yeah, overall good systems, structure, automations are going to reduce the stress, and it's going to create work that's more consistently delivered to your clients. And in the last part, I would want to look at your, growth trajectory, right? Are your offers actually profitable? You have no idea how many times I've looked at, I look at the gross profit, and I'm asking questions like the cost of sales, cost of goods sold, and the percentage is not making a lot of sense. And in certain situations, there's really no breakdown of, let's say, if we got this much revenue from a client, what did it cost us to deliver that? So even if your offers are not covering the cost of that, you're not profitable at all. Another thing I would look at is, are your prices aligned with your value? Are you attracting the right type of clients you want to work with? And is your growth sustainable? I mentioned earlier a forecast of your numbers, your vision, where you're going. Is that actually sustainable? So in general, though, growth isn't about getting busier and working harder. It's about building a healthier business that has the right team members in the right chairs in the right spots, systems, automations, technology that actually supports the growth without affecting the profitability in a negative way. So what I've created is a business health assessment. For business owners, they want a starting point. They're not exactly sure where to look at. And the reason I did that is because I kept on seeing, owners solving the wrong problems. When I'm coaching clients, that's where I can guide them to the right phase. So I created that to help, have a general assessment of where to get started. You want to start on the right things. Because the reality is that everybody wants like a quick fix, but there's really no quick fix in any business. Longevity of the business is dependent on the continuous course correction. Okay, so there's no quick fix. So you have to go through these assessments at least annually, check where you're going, what is working, what is not working. So it's not just a one-time thing, but you got to start somewhere, right? And the biggest and the main goal of the assessment is to bring clarity. Because if your mind is not clear, and I know it for myself too, if I'm not clear, I'm not going to take action, right? So you don't want to randomly spend your energy on things that you want to fix, but you don't have full clarity if that's actually going to help fix the problem. So I've created this business assessment. It goes in these 4 areas that we've already talked about. I'm going to put the link in the description box, so you can just take advantage of that. It's completely complimentary, free. So the way it works is you book a call with me, on that link that I'm going to put it in. When you book the call, you're going to immediately get the assessment link. You complete the assessment link before our call, because that tells me that you're very serious about fixing the problems in your business, right? I want to respect your time. I want you to respect my time. So, and then last one is to show up on the call. Be ready. Have the assessment ready. I'm going to have this assessment already read, and then we're going to have a conversation. So all of this is completely free to you. I'm going to put the link in the description box. You can always go straight to theprofitlab.biz and then just book the call right there on the button that says book a call. All right. So as we wrap up each and every session of this podcast and the show, I leave you with the profit question of the week. And here it is. If someone objectively evaluated your business today, what do you think they would identify as your biggest opportunity? And would that be the same answer you would give yourself? So I want you to basically, you're being like, Marie, how am I going to do that? My answer would be the same. Not really. If you put an answer now, but then give yourself time to step back and then reevaluate your business like you're an outsider, not an insider, would that be the same thing? Okay. Now, actionable takeaways, these are also very, very important. This is technically your homework of the week. So score yourself in these 4 areas that we talked about, financial health, your time commitments, your systems, and your growth trajectory. How would you evaluate yourself, say, with a 100% score on each area? What is that? What does that look like? And then think about what is the area that would get the biggest improvement and where you need to put your energy in. And, you know, are you making the right decisions and the assumptions for the specific thing you want to fix? Okay. So as we wrap up for today, if today's conversation made you realize that you're not completely sure where your business stands and how you want to get started, I invite you to take advantage of the completely free business health assessment that I've put together, specifically designed for service-based business owners. So this is all complimentary for you. It looks at the same 4 areas we talked about: your finances, your time, your systems, your growth, and then helps identify where your biggest opportunities are right now. Clarity comes first, diagnosis, and then taking action. All right. With that, please stop by at my business page, www.theprofitlab.biz. Next week, we're going to continue the conversation by looking at what it really takes to create a consistent progress in your business, because knowing what to work on is only the beginning. Lasting growth comes from building the habits, the discipline, the accountability to follow through. And until then, remember this: building a better business doesn't start with doing more, working hard. It starts with understanding what matters most in your business. Clarity, diagnosis, implementation. With that, I'm Marie Torossian, your host for today, and thank you so much for joining me on the Profit Lab Show and podcast. I will see you next week.